My brother served as the young lady's guard, convinced his bond with her transcended mere gender. Fearing she'd grow lonely in the palace, he sold our ancestral home, ruined my marriage prospects, and sent me to the palace as a palace maid. When the young lady faced false accusations, my brother had me take her place to prove her innocence. During the rebel uprising, he made me wear the young lady's clothes to endure humiliation in her stead. I died on the streets, only to reopen my eyes on the very day my brother sent me to the palace. What? You want Mu Yun to enter the palace as a palace maid? When I awoke, I met my parents' anxious gazes. My brother, Zhou Shufeng, stood before them in a brand new guard's uniform. Nodding resolutely, the young lady needs capable people by her side in the palace. I believe Mu Yun is the perfect choice. I knew immediately I had been reborn. That day, my brother informed the entire family that he had spent a fortune securing connections. Not only had he bought himself a position as a guard, but he had also added my name to the list of palace maids entering the palace. At that moment, my parents' expressions were grim. My brother entering the palace as a guard could be seen as striving for a better future. But I already had a promising marriage arranged, a wealthy, virtuous family my parents had painstakingly selected for me. If I entered the palace, that match would surely fall through. Never mind the palace's dangers, whether I'd even survive to leave at 25 was uncertain. And even if I did, my life would likely be ruined. By now, Mother had begun weeping, but Father was thinking of something else entirely. His brow furrowed deeply as he asked Brother Fenger, "You've cultivated so many connections, it must have cost hundreds of taels of silver, right? Where on earth would our family find that much money?" My heart clenched in pain as memories from my past life surfaced. I knew Brother Feng would give the answer that would turn Father's hair white overnight. Sure enough, Brother Feng spoke calmly. "I sold our ancestral home back in our hometown." At these words, Father's face turned ashen, and Mother nearly fainted. You see, the ancestral home back in our hometown was the very lifeblood of my parents. They toiled their entire lives, waiting to return to that house in their old age to enjoy a peaceful retirement. Now that the house was sold, and all the silver spent by brother on connections, my parents had nowhere to go in their twilight years. They could only retire to the estate of the new owner. Calling it retirement is a euphemism. If they encountered an unkind estate manager, endless labor would be the least of their troubles. They'd likely face constant scolding and beatings. In my past life, I raged at my brother, calling him unfilial, only to be rebuked. Mu Yun. Loyalty and filial piety. Loyalty comes before filial piety. Besides, our family has grain and provisions. How could we be in such dire straits? Our young mistress is alone in the deep palace. How cold and fearful she must be. What you should be thinking about now is how to serve her faithfully and protect her, not filling your head with selfish desires. My brother has always been like this. Ever since I can remember, he taught me to be loyal to the young mistress for life. But in truth, we weren't really her servants. The young mistress came from a marquis's household. My father was the accountant for the marquis's estates, and my mother was the steward in charge of the gardens. 2 years ago, they redeemed their indentures and became free men. Yet brother clings stubbornly to his identity as the young lady's servant, refusing to relinquish it. Once a servant, forever devoted. The young lady is my master for life. He demands not only his own loyalty to her, but mine as well. In my past life, he sent me to the imperial palace, then used his connections to secure me a position at Springwire Pavilion, where the young mistress resided. When the emperor grew suspicious of the young mistress, the Ministry of Punishment took me and the other 2 maids on duty for interrogation under harsh torture. Even upon entering the ministry, I clung to a sliver of hope, for I knew the eunuch in charge of punishments at the Ministry of Punishments was acquainted with my brother. He knew I was my brother's sister, and surely would show mercy during the torture. But I never imagined my brother would personally come to the Ministry of Punishments to instruct that eunuch. The young mistress is now under the emperor's suspicion. Her situation is perilous. You must beat her mercilessly. The more brutal and vicious the beating, the more these palace maids will insist on her innocence. And only then will the emperor's doubts be dispelled. Even the eunuch couldn't bear to watch and hesitated, but Mu Yun is your own flesh and blood sister. If you beat her to the point of serious injury, her life would be ruined. How could you ever explain this to your parents? My brother shook his head solemnly. Her current status comes first. She is the princess consort's palace maid. Only then is she our parents' daughter and my sister. Loyalty comes first. I cannot let personal feelings cloud my judgment. I stared at him in disbelief, screaming, "Brother!" But he only frowned. His face a mask of righteousness. Muyu. This is the moment when true loyalty is tested. You must show the princess consort your devotion. For the sake of loyalty, I and 2 other palace maids endured torture at the Ministry of Punishment. I was the luckiest, only 1 leg was severed. And I survived. The other 2 maids were not so fortunate. One, unable to bear the torment, bit through her tongue and died. The other perished under the beatings. Such horrors finally convinced the emperor of the young mistress's innocence. After I was carried back to Springwater Pavilion, the young mistress never once came to see me. She was busy in the imperial study, sweet-talking the emperor and vying for his favor, with no time to spare for a lowly palace maid like me. My brother sighed. The emperor knows he wronged the young mistress this time. He's already elevated her rank and bestowed many gifts as compensation. After this incident, the emperor showered the young mistress with unprecedented favor, even bringing her along on his southern tour. Unexpectedly, before reaching Jiangnan, their ship was ambushed by rebel forces. The rebels stormed aboard, targeting women for assault. They were so brazen they ignored the palace maids, seeking only the concubines clad in silk robes. At the critical moment, my brother rushed forward. He shielded the screaming, tearful young mistress, then forcibly draped a consort's outer robe over me before pushing me out of the cabin. It was the worst nightmare of my life. The rebels seized me, bellowing that they would taste the emperor's woman. On the deck, my brother was protecting the young mistress, leaping into a small boat to flee. He didn't even glance back at me. The rebels tore my clothes apart. Fortunately, just as he lunged at me, I found a sword dropped by a fallen guard. I slashed the rebel, then leapt into the river as he collapsed. Screaming, luck was on my side. I clung to a drifting plank. After drifting all night, I finally crawled ashore. By then, reinforcements had arrived. The rebels were slaughtered to the last man. The emperor and his consorts were resting in nearby carriages. I rushed toward the carriage where the young lady was. But before I could draw near, someone blocked my path. It was my brother. His face showed no joy at my survival, only deep concern. Mu Yun. As an unmarried woman who was approached by rebels and lost her purity, you may no longer approach the young mistress. Every step within the palace is fraught with danger. The young mistress's current reputation cannot withstand any further tarnish. I trembled in shock. Brother, what does this mean? I am the young mistress's palace maid. By forbidding me to return, are you forcing me to throw myself into the river? My brother's face was etched with sorrow as he nodded. Mu Yun, to die protecting your mistress would earn you a reputation for loyalty and bravery. Consider it your fate. Seeing I wouldn't leave, he summoned several colleagues who forcibly carried me away. And so, I was cast out onto the street, far from the palace. Though my broken leg had been set, soaking in the river all night left it throbbing with excruciating pain. I don't recall how I died. Only a hazy memory remains. Someone whispering to me, if a father shows no kindness, why should a son be dutiful? If a master shows no grace, why should a servant be loyal? Tears fell from my eyes. Yes. My entire life, wasted as this so-called loyal servant. How utterly worthless. Jo Muyun. Would you like to start over? The voice asked again. I nodded frantically. If I could start over, I would never be that foolishly loyal person again. Heaven had eyes, it truly granted me a second chance. This time, watching my brother sell the ancestral home, I didn't leap up to scold him. What good would scolding do? After my past life, I already knew my brother couldn't be awakened by words. So I waited until he left. Then quietly reassured our parents, father, mother, rest assured. I'll earn enough silver soon to buy back our ancestral home. Soon, the day arrived for me to enter the palace. My brother escorted me to the palace gates before reporting to the guards' quarters. I've already given silver to the matron in charge. She'll assign you to serve at Springwater Pavilion. Just like in my past life. He urged me. Mu Yun, you must be utterly loyal to the young mistress. I nodded in agreement. Then, after passing through the palace gates, I dashed straight toward the Bureau of Clothing without looking back. Days later, my brother discovered I hadn't gone to Springwater Pavilion to serve the young mistress, but had instead become an embroidery maid at the Bureau of Clothing. He couldn't help but fly into a rage. I protested tearfully. It wasn't my choice. I dropped my handkerchief on the road, and Chin Ma'am from the Bureau of Garments found it. Seeing my exceptional embroidery skills, she insisted on claiming me from the ma'am in charge of assignments. Of course, I had deliberately dropped that handkerchief. In my previous life, Matron Chin had already held my needlework in the highest regard. But back then, I was already bound to Springwater Pavilion, so Matron Chin could only exchange techniques with me in private. This time, to ensure she would select me, I embroidered this handkerchief overnight before entering the palace. The design featured Chin Ma'am's favorite flower, the crabapple blossom. Upon seeing it, her desire to nurture talent surged, and she immediately requested me for the clothing bureau. Chin Ma'am was personally placed in the Bureau of Clothing by the Empress Dowager. The matrons in charge wouldn't dare offend such a powerful figure with connections just for the silver my brother offered. Thus, I naturally ended up in the Bureau of Clothing. The first step of my plan was a success. My brother was furious. I replied slowly. Shouldn't you be happy for me, brother? The Imperial Wardrobe Bureau was notoriously lucrative, often offering generous rewards. Perhaps within a year or two, I could buy back our ancestral home. My brother cared nothing for the ancestral home. He only cared about the young mistress. But what about the young mistress? I had you enter the palace to support her. I cut him off. The young mistress clearly brought 4 personal maidservants into the palace. Why do you speak of her as if she were utterly alone? According to palace regulations, when a concubine enters the palace through the selection process, she may bring her maidservants from her time as a young lady. Given the young lady's noble birth, she brought a full 4. Yet you still insisted on shoving me into her palace. My brother replied coldly, what do you know? The more people around her, the better. I sneered, is that so? Does brother truly believe the lady lacks sufficient attendance? Or does he see my presence as an excuse to visit her at will? This realization dawned on me only after entering the palace. As a guard, brother's frequent visits to the consort's quarters inevitably aroused suspicion. But with me, his own sister, serving at Springwater Pavilion, his visits to the lady now had a legitimate purpose. Now that I'd exposed his scheme, brother flew into a rage. You've twisted my pure devotion into something so vile. Clearly your mind is filled with filthy, obscene thoughts. Today, I, your elder brother, shall teach you a lesson. I watched as he raised his hand to strike me. Suddenly, A high-pitched eunuch's voice pierced the air from around the corner. Who dares make such a racket? A brilliant yellow dragon robe came into view. The emperor was returning from court. My brother and I hastily knelt. The emperor walked slowly toward us, the hem of his robe brushing past our faces. His chief eunuch already began scolding, a guard and a palace maid, pulling and tugging at each other within the forbidden city. What a disgrace! My brother hastily kowtowed, Your Majesty. Forgive us. Sir, this palace maid is my own sister. She acted improperly, and as her elder brother, I was admonishing her. Before he could finish, the eunuch cut him off sharply. Insolence! Are there no rules in the Forbidden City? If a palace maid behaves improperly, the matrons will discipline her. When did it become your place, a mere guard, to interfere? Guards! Take them away and flog them 50 strokes each. Just as the eunuchs were about to drag us off, the emperor waved his hand. Enough. At his majesty's command, the eunuchs halted immediately. The chief eunuch beamed, Your Majesty, how shall we proceed? The emperor remained silent. He stepped before me, lowering his gaze. This sagittary. Did you embroider it yourself? Startled, I realized he was referring to the lake blue sachet at my waist and hastily replied, Yes. The emperor remarked, The craftsmanship is quite fine. What is your name? I answered, This servant is Mu Yun, serving in the Bureau of Imperial Garments. The emperor nodded. Heaven showers autumn dew upon Mu Yun's temples, a unique name indeed. Very well. I am in a good mood today. I shall overlook your transgression and that of your brother. This must not happen again. With that, the emperor departed with his entourage in full procession. My brother and I knelt to see him off until his figure vanished completely before rising to stand straight. I expected my brother to express relief at escaping punishment, but instead he frowned at me. Mu Yun, he said, why did you speak to His Majesty in such a soft, subdued voice, utterly unlike your usual self? Could it be you harbored some improper thoughts? Hearing this, I burst out laughing in exasperation. That was His Majesty. When addressing the emperor, should I not be soft-spoken and cautious? Was I supposed to speak in a loud, arrogant tone instead? This retort left my brother speechless. Yet he still frowned and warned me. Mu Yun, as your elder brother, I must warn you. As a servant, you must know your place. Never harbor such sky-high ambitions. If you ever dream of climbing onto the dragon bed, you'll be making an enemy of the young mistress. And when that day comes, don't blame me for disowning you as my sister. I let out a cold laugh. The emperor merely asked me a couple of casual questions. And it's already got you so worked up. You're even eating the missus' jealousy for her, truly a loyal servant indeed. With that, I turned away from my brother and headed back to the Bureau of Imperial Garments. This garment bureau truly is a splendid assignment. When I presented the embroidered garments to the mistresses of various palaces, they lavished praise on my craftsmanship and often rewarded me generously. Some particularly generous patrons even grabbed handfuls of gold coins and tossed them at me. Clutching those gold coins, I couldn't help but feel tears welling up in my eyes. You see, in my past life at Springwater Pavilion, I too worked on embroidery late into the night every day. But the shoes, socks, and sachets I stitched were all given to the emperor by the young mistress, who falsely claimed them as her own work to vie for his favor. Even Matron Cheen sighed for me. She's your mistress, you can't compete for credit. Such bitterness must be swallowed silently. Thus, until my death, the palace believed the master embroiderer was the young mistress. Aside from Matron Cheen and a handful of embroiderers in the Bureau of Clothing, no one knew my name. Fortunately, in this lifetime, this craft has finally brought tangible benefits. In just a few short months, I've amassed a substantial sum of silver. While I was saving money, My brother wasn't idle either. He often volunteered to take night shifts for his colleagues, just so he could be stationed at the gate of Springwater Pavilion. When the young mistress felt lonely, he kept her company. When she faced trouble, he comforted her. And when she no longer needed him, my brother would frequently come to my quarters. It wasn't out of concern for me, but to keep a watchful eye. Ever since the Emperor questioned me last time, brother has kept a watchful eye on me. He frequently came to probe my movements, ensuring I wouldn't secretly seduce the Emperor behind his back. One day, he appeared before me again. I couldn't help but sneer coldly. Brother, there are at least 800 beautiful palace maids in this palace. Why fixate on me alone? Aren't you afraid others might seize this chance to rise? Yet this time, my brother ignored my sarcastic tone. His expression was peculiar, even tinged with flattery. Mu Yun, he said, have you obtained the snow cornelian cherry? My heart skipped a beat. The snow cornelian cherry, a rare flower from the western regions, its petals held medicinal properties, offering miraculous cures for over 100 ailments. Back then, the western regions had only presented a single snow cornel plant, which the emperor had offered to the Empress Dowager. In my previous life, before the Empress Dowager's birthday, I worked tirelessly day and night, pouring my heart and soul into embroidering a picture of a crane celebrating longevity over 3 months. I did it for one reason only, to obtain the petals of the snow cornel. I was raised by my grandmother, who in recent years had fallen ill with a persistent cough. Her condition worsened until she began coughing up blood. The physician declared her frail constitution could not endure another winter without a cure. Thus, on the Empress Dowager's birthday, I presented this crane of longevity embroidery, wishing her boundless health and years. The embroidery was exquisitely crafted with utmost care. The Empress Dowager's countenance brightened with delight, and just as she was about to bestow a reward upon me, she noticed me kneeling on the ground, head bowed in tears. Her Majesty immediately frowned. Wasn't this meant to celebrate my birthday? Why are you suddenly crying? Nanny Chin hastily interceded on my behalf. Your Majesty's kindness must have reminded this child of her own grandmother. Bowing repeatedly, I recounted my grandmother's illness in full detail. The Empress Dowager, in a particularly good mood, was immediately moved by compassion upon hearing this. Our dynasty governs the realm through filial piety. Your devotion is truly precious. She then ordered attendants to pluck the petals of the snow dogwood and bestow them upon me. Thus, I finally obtained the life-saving medicine to treat my grandmother's illness. In my previous life, as a palace maid, I couldn't leave the palace freely, so I entrusted the snow cornelian cherry to my brother, urging him to take it home quickly. My brother readily agreed and departed with the flowers. But half a month later, I received the news of my grandmother's passing. That day, I frantically searched for my brother, only to overhear the senior maid attending the young mistress thanking him. The snow cornelian cherry delivered by Guard Zhou proved remarkably effective. Our young mistress applied the petal juice to her face, and within mere days, the scar vanished entirely. We truly don't know how to thank Guard Zhou enough. My brother offered a comforting smile. It was merely my duty. No need for thanks. My body went limp, and I could barely stand. It turned out the young mistress had been scratched across the face by a civet cat kept by another concubine some time ago, leaving a faint scar on her porcelain-like skin. She wept constantly, and my brother was heartbroken. So instead of sending the snow dogwood out of the palace to grandmother, he had given it to the young mistress. He traded grandmother's passing for the young lady's restored beauty. My brother spotted me slumped on the floor. Approaching with a cold expression, he warned, this matter must never be spoken of. If it is, I will hold you solely responsible. I wailed, brother. You two were raised on grandmother's congee. How could you watch her die without lifting a finger? My brother replied in a deep voice, that is a woman's perspective. Birth, aging, sickness, and death are the natural course of life. Grandmother passed away at a ripe old age. It was a joyful farewell. But the young lady is still in the prime of her youth. For a woman, her appearance is of utmost importance. How could she possibly survive in this treacherous palace with such a scar on her face? Mu Yun. You've served in Springwater Pavilion for so long. Do you know why you're still only a third-rank palace maid in the outer courtyard? Because you'll never learn to think for your mistress. I know. With you here, our family is doomed to ruin. So this time, after obtaining the snow cornelian cherry, I said nothing, never mentioned it to you. Yet with so many eyes in the palace, word still reached him. As a palace maid, your movements are restricted. Hand over the snow pearl, my brother demanded. I refused to fall for it. Snow pearl? I know nothing of such things. My brother's displeasure was palpable. Fine. Little Fuzi from the Empress Dowager's quarters shared wine with me and revealed she bestowed the snow pearl upon you. I said nothing and turned to leave. But my brother grabbed me by the arm. Zhou Muyun. I'm your elder brother. Why do you treat me like a thief? I've already searched your quarters. There was nothing there. So you must be carrying that snow dogwood on your person, right? I struggled desperately. But my strength was no match for his. The paper packet wrapped in snow dogwood petals was snatched from me. I lunged forward. Give it back. My brother tried to dodge. But in the struggle, the packet slipped from his grasp. It slid down the rocks and plunged into the 1,000-carp pool. My mind went blank. My brother cursed. Zhou Muyun. You. I didn't hear the rest. I plunged into the 1,000-carp pool, the water engulfing me. I fished around in the pool for a long time before finally retrieving every single snow dogwood petal. By nightfall, I stumbled clumsily ashore from the pool's edge. Yet the moment I reached land, despair washed over me. Not far away, beneath the shade of a pavilion, sat a woman dressed in pale yellow court robes. It was none other than the young mistress. 2 palace maids attended her, while my brother stood bowed nearby. Spotting me emerge, he immediately reported, "Young mistress. The snow dogwood is upon her." The young mistress nodded, remaining seated as she extended her hand toward me. "Since you've retrieved it, bring it here." Her expression conveyed utter certainty. I clutched the cloth sack tightly and took a step back. "This belongs to this servant." Her expression turned puzzled. "Mu Yun. Is it?" She called my name. "I am the master. You are the servant." How dare a servant argue such matters with her master? Gritting my teeth, I summoned my courage. My parents did indeed serve in the Marquis's household. But they have since redeemed their contracts and are now free people. Though I entered the palace, I do not serve in the young mistress's quarters. How could my belongings be yours? The young mistress furrowed her delicate brows, her expression bewildered and hurt. Listen to this. How could the home mansion raise such ungrateful servants? My brother then snapped at me, "Mu Yun. The mistress herself has come here. If you continue to be ungrateful, the Zhou family will disown you as our daughter." The young mistress remained seated, unmoving. But her 2 palace maids stepped forward, one on each side, grabbing me to pull me away. I struggled desperately, screaming, "Help!" The young mistress's face flushed crimson with anger. "Cover her mouth." Good heavens! This is utterly disgraceful. My cries grew louder. "Help! Help me!" One palace maid clamped her hand over my mouth while the other forcibly snatched the cloth bag containing the snowy dogwood berries. The young mistress seemed satisfied. She gazed at the snow-white petals in the bag and said to brother, once again, "I must thank Guard Zhou." Her clear, autumn water-like eyes turned to brother as her voice softened. "Everything you've done for me, I've always kept it in my heart." Though the young mistress had only spoken a few words of thanks, brother seemed drunk on false wine, his eyes shining with excitement. It is all my duty as a servant. The brother bowed deeply. Rest assured, young mistress. I shall discipline this sister properly in the future. After the brother escorted the young mistress back to the palace, I was left behind, drenched like a wet chicken, with no one to care whether I lived or died. Only after their figures vanished completely did I scramble to my feet and dash back to the bureau of clothing like the wind. Nanny Chin had been waiting for me for quite some time. Why are you returning so late? Oh my. You're soaked through. I shook the water droplets from my hair and smiled. It's fine. You can't catch a wolf without sacrificing the lamb. Maid Snow Dogwood has already delivered it out of the palace. Right? It's been delivered. I had my nephew, who serves at the palace gate, personally deliver it to your home. A smile touched my lips. Silent and unseen. Exactly. The packet of petals taken by brother and the young mistress wasn't Snow Dogwood at all. I'd given the real Snow Dogwood to Nanny Chin early that morning, asking her to smuggle it out of the palace. Afterward, I gathered random white petals from the imperial garden, shredded them, and carried them with me, preparing for brother's search. I knew my brother wouldn't let me off. If he found no Snow Dogwood on me or in my quarters, he'd surely go back to press grandmother. So I might as well put on a grand show and wait for him to take the bait. Sure enough, after exhausting himself to seize that packet of Snow Dogwood from me, my brother didn't bother me for quite some time. Whenever he had free time, he'd rush to Springwater Pavilion, even if entering the palace was inconvenient. Just hearing news of the young lady outside the palace walls brought him great joy. Unfortunately, this time, my brother's happiness didn't last long. The young lady used my pile of fake Snow Dogwood to make a petal juice, applying it to her face daily. Not only did it fail to fade her scars, but it also caused a rash of tiny red bumps. My brother was summoned for questioning. The young lady was usually as serene as a chrysanthemum, but seeing her beauty ruined like this, she couldn't help but lose her temper. Her voice turned sharp. Zhou Shufeng, is this your loyalty? My brother was also flustered. Tears welling up, I personally researched various ancient texts. This Snow Dogwood truly has scar-fading effects. Unless this Snow Dogwood is fake. Before he could finish, the young mistress, enraged, grabbed a scroll and hurled it at him. You told me your sister received Snow Cornelian Cherry as a personal gift from the Empress Dowager. And now you tell me it's fake. Her fury boiled over. Yet a moment's reflection brought suspicion to her eyes. Zhou Shufeng, could it be that another palace has bribed you to harm me? With a thud, the elder brother knelt before her. Your Highness sees clearly. Even if it meant death, this servant would never betray you. Ever since you entered the palace, I've used my authority as a guard to aid you in countless ways. Even when you wished to harm other concubines, a mere hint to me was enough. I'd become your foot soldier, carrying out your dirty work without question. Recalling all the ways brother had aided her, the young mistress's tone softened. She stepped forward to help him up herself, saying, I was foolishly enraged. I should never have doubted you. Everyone in this palace may betray me, but I trust you. Guard Zhou will never do so. Her gentle words brought tears to brother's eyes once more. As soon as he stepped out of Springwater Pavilion, he stormed straight to the garment bureau to confront me. When brother burst into the garment bureau, I was playing with two maids, twisting flower ropes. Consumed by rage, he ignored them, yanked me by the arm, and unleashed a torrent of accusations. Zhou Muchuin, are you deliberately causing trouble? I stared blankly. What? Stop pretending. I've already gathered intelligence. Grandmother is completely recovered. That snow-red cornel root must have been swapped by you. This time, you've deceived not only me but also the young mistress. Now she has a rash on her face. You deserve to die 10,000 times over. I burst into tears. looking utterly terrified. Has Lady Yao taken a grudge against me? I only acted out of eagerness to cure grandmother, never intending to deceive anyone. Brother, you and Lady Yao have always been close. Could you please persuade the young mistress to spare my lowly life? My brother was about to scold me further when he suddenly noticed the sky-blue long skirt I'd just finished embroidering. Its hem was densely outlined with silver thread, and when sunlight hit it, it resembled endless waves. He asked, "What is this?" I hastily replied, "Consort Song of Changle Palace summoned the imperial physician to treat grandmother. For such great kindness, I thought to embroider a gown as a gift for her highness." My brother's expression immediately darkened. Everyone knew Consort Song was the most senior and favored concubine, while the young mistress was the rising star. These two were the most cherished by the emperor in the palace. Naturally, they were also bitter rivals. Now, not only had I given the young mistress fake snow dogwood berries, but I had also embroidered a skirt for her enemy. My brother was furious. He snatched the skirt from my hands. "Enough. I won't argue with you. But if you value your life, keep your distance from Changle Palace. I'm taking this skirt to Chenshui Pavilion. Let the young mistress vent her anger there, it will spare you from death." I chased after my brother, but his strides were too long for me to catch up. I could only watch helplessly as he carried the skirt away. When I returned, tears streaming down my face, the two maids who'd been skipping rope with me looked utterly dismayed. I couldn't save the skirt. I sobbed. "Please speak for me before the imperial consort. I'll make her a better one next time." True. These two maids seemed ordinary, but their status was anything but. They both served in Imperial Consort Song's palace. Consort Song had many maidservants, and I'd deliberately chosen these two, the most gossipy and talkative, to befriend them beforehand. I'd invited them to play with me during their off-duty hours. Sure enough, after just a few days of playing, my brother came looking for me to settle the score. The entire scene had been witnessed by these two little maidservants, and now they were extremely displeased. "Sister Mu Yun, it's not your fault. Your brother just took it by force." "But why did he force you to give the skirt to Spring Water Pavilion? You've never served there." Wiping away tears, I replied, "I don't know either. Logically, since both my brother and I serve in the palace, we should treat all the ladies equally. But he always demands I favor Spring Water Pavilion, forcing me to give any good things to Lady Yao first." The two young maids exchanged glances, their eyes already clouded with impure intent. Pretending utter ignorance, I presented them with hand-embroidered pouches and sachets before escorting them out of the garment bureau. Watching them head straight for Changle Palace, I let out a genuine smile. They would surely deliver this intelligence to the imperial consort. Afterward, a rare period of calm descended upon the palace. The young mistress remained secluded in Springwater Pavilion, treating her face. The Marquis's household had connections after all, securing a renowned physician's secret formula for her, though not as instantaneous as snow dogwood. After 2 months, the scars on her face gradually faded. I used this time to embroider a new skirt adorned with 100 butterflies flitting through flowers, which I presented to the imperial consort. The gown was exquisitely beautiful, its butterflies and flower stamens rendered with astonishing realism. The imperial consort was delighted. She had always admired my craftsmanship, often rewarding me with handfuls of gold coins. When she heard of my grandmother's illness, she even sent her trusted physician to our home for treatment. Now, with those 2 young palace maids speaking highly of me before the consort, she was in a particularly good mood. She asked me, "Would you be willing to serve me in the Palace of Everlasting Joy?" I returned to discuss it with Auntie Chin, who was overjoyed for me. She told me that Consort Song herself had risen from a palace maid to her current position. Yet she never forgot her humble origins. Though the other consorts in the harem said she was ruthless, not a single servant spoke ill of her. Serving in her palace would surely open doors for me. The other embroiderers at the Bureau of Clothing were delighted for me, showering me with gifts and asking me to look out for them should I become a favorite in the consort's eyes. But before I could even reach Changle Palace, laden with all my bags, my brother intercepted me. With no one around, his face darkened to a grim expression. "Don't you know Changle Palace and Springwater Pavilion are sworn enemies?" Of course I knew. Seeing no shame on my face only angered him further. "Since you've left the Bureau of Clothing, why didn't you serve at our young mistress's Springwater Pavilion? Do you realize the young mistress was heartbroken upon hearing you joined Changle Palace? She feels all our years of mistress-servant loyalty were for naught. Even if you chose another palace. Why specifically Changle? The imperial consort is ruthless. Aiding such a tiger won't end well for you." At this point, I couldn't be bothered to pretend anymore. I sneered coldly. "Oh, so Lady Yao holds such deep affection for me? Then why didn't she spare a single coin for medicine when grandmother was gravely ill? Not to mention, whenever we delivered garments to the mistresses of other palaces, everyone received a reward, except her. She'd just give us the cold shoulder, as if we owed her something." My brother flew into a rage, shouting, "All you care about is that pittance. No wonder a noble lady like the young mistress wouldn't give you the time of day. Now that I belong to consort song, brother dares not beat or scold me as before." He merely glared at me a few more times before turning to comfort the young mistress at Springwater Pavilion. Watching his retreating figure, I sneered inwardly. "Brother, cherish these last moments of tender affection with the young mistress, for your good days are about to end." Winter's chill had passed, giving way to spring. On this day, the emperor hosted a spring banquet in the imperial garden, attended by his most esteemed consorts. As consort Song's palace maid, I served by her side. After 3 rounds of wine, the sound of silk and bamboo instruments suddenly filled the air. Then, a figure clad in sky blue emerged gracefully from among the flowers. None other than the young mistress herself. She wore that sky blue gown my brother snatched from me, its hem rippling like water as she danced among the blossoms to the music. Truly beautiful, like a celestial maiden descended to earth. Displeasure flashed across the faces of several concubines present. Earlier, when we schemed to vie for favor, she had sneered at us with her usual sharp tongue. She was the most aloof and proud of them all. How could she, after months of not seeing the emperor's face, now eagerly come dancing? The imperial consort smiled as she took a grape from my hand, saying nothing. When the dance ended, the young lady approached the emperor and curtsied gracefully. "Your servant has longed for the emperor day and night during these days apart. Hearing his majesty was here enjoying spring today, I prepared this dance to bring joy. Now that the dance is finished, I shall take my leave." With that, the young lady rose to depart. This calculated game of teasing in retreat made the other consorts roll their eyes. Alas, the emperor fell right for it, calling out to her, "Yaoer, since you've come, stay and keep me company." Having been deprived of the emperor's favor for months due to the scar on her face, the young lady's eyes welled with tears at his words. She immediately sat down beside him. As she watched the tender exchange between the young lady and the emperor, the noble consort suddenly spoke. She smiled sweetly. "Your dance, noble consort Yao, has truly enchanted this palace lady. Yet I have a question. This spring banquet invited only the highest-ranking consorts, myself, Consort Shu, and Consort Jing. His Majesty specifically ordered no uninvited guests to enter. How, then, did noble Consort Yao gain entry?" At these words, the emperor's expression shifted slightly. Truth be told, the young lady's dance was indeed splendid, but whoever let her in had clearly neglected their duty. The imperial consort continued. "Security within the palace is of paramount importance. Today it was Lady Yao who slipped through, perhaps forgivable. But what if tomorrow it were someone else? This concerns the emperor's safety, we must not be careless. True to her years of imperial favor, the noble consort's words struck precisely at the emperor's heart. For years, he had faced repeated assassination attempts within the palace, and the fear still lingered. Frowning, the emperor demanded in a deep voice, "Who is responsible for guarding the imperial garden?" I stood silently, thinking, who else could it be? Sure enough, moments later, a young eunuch arrived to report, "The gatekeeper is Zhou Shifeng." Guard Zhou. The young lady sensed trouble brewing. This grand drama of vying for favor might just come to naught. She quickly tugged at the emperor's sleeve and pleaded softly. Guard Zhou only relented and allowed me into the imperial garden because he saw how desperately I longed for your majesty. I beg you, for the sake of my undying devotion, to spare him. The young lady, known for her aloofness, seldom displayed such endearment in public. The emperor, still captivated by her dance, momentarily softened. Very well. I shall pardon his dereliction this once. Let it not happen again. The imperial consort, however, set down her wine cup, her expression turning icy. Oh, was Guard Zhou moved by your devotion to his majesty? Or, by the nature of your relationship? At these words, the young lady's face drained of color. Your imperial majesty, how dare you? How dare you speak of me thus? The imperial consort rose and knelt before the emperor. Your majesty. Rumors have long circulated throughout the 6 palaces suggesting an unusual relationship between Consort Yao and Guard Zhou. This servant always dismissed them as nonsense. Yet seeing Guard Zhou risk punishment for dereliction of duty to admit Lady Yao, I fear these rumors may not be entirely groundless. The emperor's expression darkened. He had always been suspicious by nature. Bring Zhou Shifeng forward. My brother was brought before the throne. The moment he knelt, he cried out, "Your Majesty, witness my innocence. There is nothing between this humble servant and Consort Yao. I have never shown her any favoritism." No sooner had he spoken than a young palace maid beside the imperial consort sneered coldly, "No favoritism? We saw it with our own eyes. You forced Mu Yun to give the Tianshui green gown, meant for the imperial consort, to Consort Yao instead. And now she wears it." Hearing this, the young lady bit her lip, tears glistening. She twisted her skirt hem nervously. This was offered voluntarily by the Imperial Wardrobe Bureau. The imperial consort rebuked the young palace maid, Suyue. "How dare you interrupt? You truly know no decorum." The young maid hastily apologized. After this well-rehearsed exchange between mistress and servant, the imperial consort finally turned her gaze upon me with a haunting look. "Mu Yun, since this matter involves you, and Zhou Shifeng is your elder brother, you should explain." I nodded and knelt in the center of the grand hall. My brother looked at me, hope igniting in his eyes. He must have believed, as his blood sister, I shared his fate, rising and falling together. At this critical juncture, I would surely strive to protect him. But in truth, I had long steeled my resolve. I could never forget my past life, after my brother seized the snow cornel berries I'd gathered for grandmother and gifted them to the young mistress. Grandmother coughed up blood in the depths of winter and passed away before the next spring arrived. After our ancestral home was sold, our parents were forced to work on the estate, where they endured the overseer's scolding and beatings. That autumn, they both succumbed to consumption and passed away. And I, having barely escaped the clutches of the rebel army, was cast out onto the streets by my brother, where I froze and starved to death. These events made me realize that my brother's affection for the young lady would destroy our entire family. Therefore, I had no choice but to take action against him first. At this moment, within the grand hall, I bowed deeply before the emperor. "Your Majesty, Zhou Shifeng's intentions toward Consort Yao are indeed impure." The words hung in the air, the hall falling silent enough to hear a pin drop. My brother lunged forward. "Zhou Muyun. How dare you?" Two burly eunuchs seized him, one on each side, forcibly gagging his mouth. I knelt and declared, "Zhou Shufeng has repeatedly coerced the servant, demanding I divert offerings meant for other palaces to consort Yao. Even the snow cornel berries personally bestowed by the Empress Dowager to save my grandmother's life were nearly seized by my brother to restore the young mistress's complexion." Consort Yao grew frantic, tears welling as she pointed at me pitifully. "Muyu, you are guard Zhou's own sister. How can you slander your own brother like this?" I lifted my head and declared, having entered the palace, "I am first and foremost a palace maid of the Forbidden City, and only secondarily my brother's sister. Loyalty and filial piety, loyalty comes first, filial piety second. If I withheld the truth from His Majesty out of familial affection, that would be a crime deserving death." These were the words my brother had taught me in my previous life, and now I had finally repaid him. My brother's eyes blazed with fury, his hatred for me grinding his teeth. Yet clearing his name was paramount now. He tore free from the eunuchs pinning him down and threw himself to the ground, kowtowing desperately. "Your Majesty, witness this." Before the young lady entered the palace, I was merely a servant of the Ho family. All this stems solely from my loyalty to her. I never once entertained any personal feelings. The imperial consort replied coolly, "Oh, if guard Zhou never harbored personal feelings, why did you immediately shout about your innocence with consort Yao upon entering?" My brother hadn't grasped the implication at first, but moments later, it hit him like a thunderclap. His blood rushed to his head. When he was brought in earlier, no one had even questioned him about his crime. Yet he immediately declared he had no illicit relationship with consort Yao. But in reality, when a guard is brought in without any prior questioning, the first thing he should think of is his own dereliction of duty. What brother blurted out first actually exposed his guilty conscience. Unable to speak, he could only repeatedly kowtow, protesting his innocence. The emperor's brow darkened with shifting shadows. He glanced at me and murmured, "Muyu, this is your elder brother. Do you believe his actions stem from loyalty or personal desire?" I bit my lip, letting two crocodile tears fall as I feigned heart-wrenching resolve to sacrifice kin for justice. "Your Majesty, as the younger sister of guard Zhou, I naturally wished to believe my brother acted out of loyalty to the young mistress. Yet I also know this scandal has rocked the entire city. To sweep it under the rug would gravely damage both Lady Yao's reputation and our Zhou family's good name. Therefore, in my humble opinion, it would be best to have the Ministry of Punishment take my brother away for investigation. I trust the eunuchs of the ministry are masters of inquiry. If even their rigorous interrogation uncovers nothing, then my brother's loyalty to Lady Yao must be utterly pure." Brother glared at me. His lips trembled. How could anyone in this world suggest sending a blood relative to the Ministry of Punishment? "Zhou Muchuan, how utterly vicious are you? Why wouldn't there be? In my past life, it was at your suggestion that I was sent there." Though my heart rejoiced, I shed two clear tears. "Brother, how could I ever wish you suffering?" But truly, there was no other way. And so, guided by the imperial consort, brother was sent to the Ministry of Punishment for interrogation under severe torture. Consort Yao was confined to Spring Water Pavilion, and many of her palace attendants were also taken away for questioning. The first to testify were two maids named Juer and Xinger. These two maids were none other than the girls who had suffered alongside me in the punishment bureau in my previous life, the ones who were ultimately beaten to death. Both were very young, only 13 or 14. In that past life, the word loyalty had been hammered into their bones, leading them to lose their lives in utter confusion. This time, I approached them early on and assured them, "Rest assured, you are merely maids responsible for sweeping and night watch in the courtyard. Whatever misfortune befalls your mistress will not involve you." Thus, Zhuer and Xinger reported the truth they had witnessed multiple times, guard Zhou entering and exiting spring water pavilion, staying for 1 or 2 hours each time. Now, my brother suffered even more brutal torture in the punishment bureau. And Consort Yao's situation grew extremely perilous. With the experience of my past life, I understood Consort Yao well. She appeared lofty and aloof, but in truth, she was utterly selfish. If sacrificing those around her could secure her own safety, she would do so without hesitation. Thus, one late night, Consort Yao's personal senior palace maid used her connections to arrange a meeting with Zhou Shifeng. Hope flared in Zhou Shifeng's eyes. Did the young mistress send you? Rest assured, I won't reveal anything. Tears welled in the maid's eyes. The young mistress is in grave danger herself this time. Unless His Majesty's suspicions are completely dispelled, she may never recover. Her brother pleaded earnestly. How can we dispel it? The maid bit her lip. Didn't guard Zhou often say that his feelings for the young mistress began as master-servant, transcending mere romance? If guard Zhou were no longer a man, he could truly fulfill this bond from now on. The emperor's suspicions would then have no basis to arise. The senior palace maid delivered the message and departed. As it turned out, brother did not disappoint the young mistress. That night, while the guards dozed, he seized his blade and castrated himself. Brother underestimated the peril of self-castration. Those within the palace skilled in performing this task for eunuchs possessed precise technique. Brother, attempting it for the first time, lacked experience and had no means to stop the bleeding. Fortunately, the guards were roused by his agonized screams and arrived in time to check on him. Otherwise, he would have bled to death within the span of a stick of incense. Even with timely discovery and treatment, he remained unconscious for half a month. This, however, moved the emperor to show mercy, releasing him from the ministry of punishment. When he awoke, he found himself on a bed in a side chamber. With great effort, he forced his eyes open and saw a woman dressed in brocade, adorned with jewels, seated not far away. Miss. Brother was deeply moved, never expecting the young lady herself to be keeping vigil at his bedside. I smiled, shattering his illusion. Brother, it's me. I now serve as a first-class palace maid to the imperial consort, enjoying fine food, clothing, and living arrangements. Though seated in this humble room, my hair sparkled with jeweled hairpins, and jade bracelets tinkled on my wrists. Noticing my brother's fixed gaze, I smiled faintly. What? Don't you recognize me? Are you stunned into silence by my rise in the palace? He froze, then spat out a curse. Zhou Muyun, you traitorous whore! You trampled our young mistress to climb into the empress consort's favor. Just you wait, when she regains favor, your retribution will come. I remained unmoved, asking calmly, are you still waiting to serve in our young mistress's palace? When she rises to glory, you'll soar with her. My brother sneered coldly, I'm not like you. My loyalty to the young mistress never stemmed from greed for wealth, but from my desire to be by her side. I sighed regretfully. Indeed, it's a pity you'll never be able to accompany her again. Just yesterday, the young mistress was sentenced to death by the emperor and banished to the cold palace. My brother froze. After a long moment, he roared, you're lying. You're deceiving me. I remained seated, expression serene. Despair clouded my brother's eyes. Why? I'm already rootless. There's no chance of any romantic involvement with the young mistress in this lifetime. Why did the emperor still? My brother wept bitterly. Young mistress. Young mistress. I rose, speaking calmly. Brother, the young mistress was indeed executed by the emperor for an illicit affair. But not with you. In my past life, Zhuer, Xinger, and I were dragged to the Ministry of Punishment for interrogation because the emperor suspected the young lady had an affair with his own younger brother. Prince Qi. We three, some died. Some were crippled, finally convinced the emperor of the young lady's innocence. But in truth, the young lady was not innocent. In this life, after the incident between the young lady and you at the spring banquet, the imperial consort ordered a search of the young lady's spring water pavilion. What followed was devastating. The correspondence between the young lady and Prince Qi, their tokens of affection, all were uncovered. Watching my brother, struck as if by lightning, I whispered, "Why are you so heartbroken, brother? Could it be you thought she harbored feelings for you?" His vacant eyes turned to me. He truly believed that. He believed the young lady had entered the palace out of necessity, that they could never be together in this lifetime. So he resolved to accompany her for the rest of her days, bound only by the name of master and servant. How could that be, brother? I murmured softly. You didn't see how she, someone so unskilled in needlework, stained the fabric red with her blood while making shoes and socks for Prince Qi. In contrast, what had the young lady ever given you, brother? Nothing but a few kind words. A few teasing glances, nothing more. Ah, come to think of it, a few words and a glance were enough to make brother run errands for her day and night, serving her like a dog. If I were her, I wouldn't need to give anything else either. In the young lady's heart, a cheap and useful servant like brother was probably irreplaceable. My brother's eyes glazed over as he vomited blood. This was the true, fatal blow to him. Everything he had poured his heart into had always been for nothing. I turned away, unable to look at him any longer. My brother passed away that very night. His physical wounds weren't fatal. What truly consumed him was utter, complete heartbreak. So he hung himself from the beam with a rope. The emperor's fury over the secret affair between Prince Qi and consort Yao sent the entire harem into chaos. Hardly anyone even noticed my brother's death. Such is the Forbidden City, even the passing of a concubine is swiftly forgotten, let alone the death of a servant. It was like a speck of dust tossed into the sea, stirring not a single ripple. Only my family grieved for my brother's death. They hadn't been reborn. Unlike me, who had severed all ties with him, yet his past actions had indeed broken their hearts. After weeping bitterly, my parents gradually found solace. Moreover, I had purchased our ancestral home, restoring it to its former glory. My parents moved there with grandmother, surrounded by local relatives, and their spirits lifted considerably. Without my brother's constant meddling, our family's modest life in this lifetime could be considered steadily improving. I continued serving as a senior palace maid to the imperial consort, while Jur and Xinger also came from Chunshui Pavilion to work under me in the Chang'e Palace. Later, during the emperor's southern tour, I was exceptionally granted the title of county princess for saving his life amidst rebel forces. The imperial consort regarded me as her sworn sister. I remained by the imperial consort's side for many years, witnessing her bear children and continue her battles against wave after wave of newcomers in the palace. Nanny Qin and the embroiderers from the Bureau of Imperial Garments still kept in close contact with me. Some of them went to serve in various palaces, while others were granted marriages by the emperor. I sent generous gifts to all of them. Time flew by, and at 25, I reached the age to leave the palace. By then, the imperial consort had ascended to imperial consort dowager, and her son had been designated crown prince. The imperial consort dowager urged me to remain in the palace, continuing to serve her. Truthfully, I knew staying would be an excellent choice. Once the crown prince ascended the throne, the imperial consort dowager would become empress dowager. I would be her chief attendant, enjoying prestige, status, and honor in abundance. Even the emperor would have to show me due respect. Yet I still knelt before the imperial consort dowager and pleaded to leave the palace. The imperial consort pondered for a moment before finally consenting. Very well. This life, I have no chance. So let you go and see the blue sky beyond these red walls for me. She bestowed upon me gold, silver, paddy fields, and a residence, granting me an honorable return. 20. I finally stepped out of the forbidden city. I breathed in the fresh air. It seemed no different from the air within the forbidden city. Yet everything felt utterly transformed. The memory of my brother escorting me into the palace remained vivid. Now, at last, I was myself again, no longer a servant to any master. I looked up at the sky, deep blue and cloudless. Only white doves drifted across it. From now on, many carefree days of freedom awaited me. The end.